The laundry basket was still warm when I heard the beep. I had just finished folding Sierra's last blouse, silk pale beige, the kind that wrinkles if you even breathe on it. Caleb had left for work an hour earlier, and the house was quiet except for the hum of the fridge. I set the basket down, wiped my hands, and checked my phone. A voicemail. I tapped play. You can sleep outside until you learn to respect our privacy. There was no sarcasm in Sierra's voice. No hesitation. Just the icy tone she saved for moments she wanted to make very clear. I was not welcome. I stood frozen in my own kitchen staring at the ceramic rooster clock above the stove. Sleep outside. Not the couch. Not the guest room. Outside. I didn't respond. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. I just whispered the one word I had taught myself to use when my heart started to splinter. Understood. It wasn't the first time Sierra had drawn a line, but this was the first time she dared say it out loud, say what she had hinted at for years, that I didn't belong here, that I was only useful when quiet, when cleaning, when invisible. 3 years ago, Caleb asked if they could stay with me just for a while they saved for a down payment. I gave them the master bedroom and moved into my sewing room without a word. It was supposed to be temporary. Now I paid the bills, stocked the fridge, and lived in the smallest room of my own house. I cooked every meal, folded every shirt, smiled through every cold silence. But something about that voicemail, so casual, so cruel, broke whatever spell I'd been under. I walked to the hallway closet and pulled out the emergency mattress I kept for guests. This time, I wasn't making up a bed to welcome anyone. This time, I was making a bed for myself on the cold living room floor. When Caleb asked if they could stay for just a little while, I believed him. He stood in the doorway, one hand wrapped around Sierra's, the other around a duffel bag, saying they needed time to save. A few months, maybe 6 tops. I was retired, living alone in a house that once felt too big, so I said yes. I gave them the master bedroom, the one with the bay window and cedar closet. I told myself I didn't need much space anyway, and I moved into the old sewing room 10 by 12, just wide enough to fit a narrow bed and one dresser. I packed up my fabric rolls and sewing machine, folded away my own comfort. At first it felt like helping. I cooked for them, stocked the fridge, washed their clothes. I bought Sierra's favorite oat milk, made sure Caleb had clean socks, even cleaned the guest bathroom every other day. But they never saved. Sierra never worked. She slept until noon, scrolled her phone at the table, left dirty dishes wherever they landed. If I ever hinted carefully, always carefully, that she might help with groceries or pick up after herself, Caleb stepped in like clockwork. She's not used to housework, Mom. She comes from a different kind of family. And when I said nothing, when I folded one more load of towels or unclogged the sink again, I became what they expected me to be, quiet, convenient. Somewhere along the way, I stopped buying flowers for the table. I stopped making pot roast. I stopped opening the windows. Even the dogwood tree outside my sewing room window started to wilt. Then last night came. Sierra's voice in that message, that single vile sentence, "You can sleep outside." I lay there on the mattress, staring at the ceiling, and realized my silence hadn't protected me. It had erased me. Every understood, every swallowed feeling, every favor done without thanks had taken something from me. And when I woke up the next morning, I didn't make coffee. I didn't fold their laundry. I made a phone call instead. I had spent 4 hours on that roast. The meat was seasoned just the way Caleb liked, garlic thyme and a touch of red wine. I set the table with my best china, the ones I only used on holidays. Folded napkins. Water glasses chilled, even lit the tapered candles that had gathered dust in the drawer for 2 years. By 6:30, the house smelled like home, but it wasn't. 7 o'clock came, then 8. No footsteps, no voices, just the flickering of candles and the tick of the wall clock behind me. I checked my phone, wondering if they were running late. That's when I saw the voicemail. I played it on speaker, standing over the roast now going cold on the table. "You can sleep outside." That line I already knew. But what followed was worse. June, my neighbor, had slipped me the recording earlier that day. She didn't say much, just, "You need to hear this." It was a conversation Sierra had with a friend, loud and carefree. "I'm done playing." "Nice," Sierra laughed. "I'm gonna put that old woman in her place." They giggled like teenagers skipping school. "You mean Marlene? She acts like it's still her house. Let's see how she likes sleeping outside for a change." They howled. I stood in my own kitchen, the same one I had stocked, scrubbed, and cooked in for 3 years, listening to 2 women talk about me like I was a stray animal in their yard. By 9, I blew out the candles and packed up the uneaten roast. I laid a thin blanket on the floor beside the couch and lowered myself down, slowly wincing as my knees cracked and my back stiffened. I didn't cry. My body ached, but my mind was alert, clean almost, as if the fog of 3 years had finally burned off. There on the cold tile floor I could see clearly. I was never family. I was staff, and even staff gets to clock out. The next morning, I baked a cheesecake from scratch. Lemon zest, graham cracker crust, sour cream topping, just the way Sierra liked it. I stood in the kitchen whisking, while Caleb shuffled past me, barely muttering a morning. Sierra didn't speak at all. She was too busy setting out wine glasses and arranging pillows on the couch for the lunch she'd planned with her friends. By noon, the doorbell rang. One guest after another arrived laughing in designer heels, arms full of overpriced handbags and perfume that stuck in the air. They walked through my house like it was a hotel lobby. "Smells amazing," one of them said. Sierra smiled. "My mother-in-law is very useful. Very useful. Not kind. Not generous. Useful like a slow cooker or a mop." I served the lunch I had prepared: roasted chicken, garlic potatoes, and salad with pomegranate seeds. They complimented everything, never once looking at me. Between bites, one of the women turned to Sierra. "So, when are you two finally moving out?" Sierra scoffed and flipped her hair. "Move. Why would we? We don't pay rent and the help is free." Laughter. Shrill and sharp. My hands trembled around the water pitcher, but I didn't say a word. After they left, I scrubbed every plate, glass, and fork, while Sierra scrolled her phone beside the kitchen island. She didn't offer to help. When I finished, she looked up. "We'll be having more guests next week," she said. "I need the house spotless at all times." "You understand?" I turned toward her. My apron was damp, my arms aching. "Understood," I said. She left the room, satisfied. I walked slowly to my sewing room, my tiny square of space, the only room untouched by them. For 3 years I had kept the curtains drawn. I'd told myself it kept the room cool, the sunlight out. But the truth was, I had stopped believing I deserved to see the day. That night I pulled the curtains open for the first time in years. Sunlight flooded in, golden and unforgiving. The light didn't burn me. It revived me, and it showed me exactly what I needed to do next. 3 weeks passed. The house remained tense but quiet until I overheard Sierra talking on the phone in the living room. "No, Mom, don't get a hotel," she laughed. "You can stay in Marlene's room. She'll be fine on the couch." My room. The tiny sewing room I had slept in for 3 years while they took the master bedroom. Now even that wasn't mine. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask questions. I waited. The next day, her mother called me directly, a voice I hadn't heard in years. "Helen, it's Lorraine," she began sweetly, as if we were old friends. I heard what happened. "Look, I know Sierra can be difficult, but she just found out she's pregnant. That changes everything. Pregnant. I'm sorry, we're hoping you'll let them move back in." Just until the baby comes. It's not just about them anymore. It's about family. Family. That word again twisted, stretched, weaponized. I ended the call without agreeing to anything. Then I rang Caleb. "Meet me," I said. "Alone?" He showed up the next morning, eyes sunken, shirt wrinkled the same way he used to look after late-night cram sessions in college. I'd made him coffee before those. I didn't offer him any now. "She says she's pregnant," I said flatly. He nodded too quickly. "Yeah, it was a surprise. We were going to tell you. Show me the test." He blinked. "What, you heard me? If she's pregnant, she has a test. Show me." He hesitated. "We don't have it with us. It was at the hotel, then take me there." His lips tightened. We threw it out. I leaned forward. "You're lying." "Mom, I picked up Sierra's birth control refill 2 weeks ago. I have the receipt. Don't insult my intelligence." His silence was all the confirmation I needed. "You faked a pregnancy to manipulate me," I said, standing. "That's not family. That's fraud." He looked at me like a scolded child again. But I wasn't here to scold. I was done mothering grown adults. "You need to go," I said quietly. And that night, I started drafting the listing for the house. Caleb sat across from me, the living room silent, except for the ticking clock on the wall. He didn't look like a grown man. He looked like the boy I used to read bedtime stories to, back when he'd climb into my lap after nightmares. "Why did you do it?" I asked him, my voice steady. He stared at his hands, then up at me, but he had no answer. "I didn't know what else to do," he finally mumbled. "We were desperate." "No," I said. "You were entitled." He flinched. "You had 3 years," I continued. 3 years rent-free, bill-free. 3 years of me folding your wife's laundry while she slept until noon. 3 years of me listening to you say, "She's just not used to housework, Mom," and you used those years to mock me, to lie to me, to treat me like I didn't matter. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Just 1 more week. Please. We'll figure something out. 1 week becomes 1 month. 1 month becomes a year. And before I know it, I'm invisible again, washing your dishes and pretending I'm happy to do it." He opened his mouth to speak, but I held up my hand. "No more, Caleb. I can't do it anymore." "I won't." I walked to the front door and opened it wide. Sierra came running down the stairs, her voice shrill and panicked. "You can't do this. This is our home." "No," I said, still holding the door open. "It was my home, and I want it back." Caleb looked at me like he didn't recognize me. "Mom, please. Don't do this." I looked at both of them, my son and the woman who'd spent 3 years reminding me I was a burden. "I wanted to love you," I said quietly. "I really did. But you never wanted a mother. You wanted a maid. You wanted a wallet." Sierra's face twisted in fury. Caleb's eyes welled with tears. "I was never part of your family," I finished. "I was just a resource." I closed the door behind them. Then I walked to the dining room, picked up my yellow notepad, and made an appointment with a realtor. The quiet after they left didn't last long. 3 mornings later, a squad car pulled into my driveway. 2 officers stood at my door with careful, polite expressions, the kind people use when they think you're fragile. One of them asked, "Ma'am, are you Marlene Avery?" I nodded, heart tightening. "We received a report from a family member. Concerns about memory loss, confusion, possible self-neglect." I let them in. I served coffee. They walked through my home meticulously clean, every surface polished. My pill organizer sat on the counter, sorted by day and dosage. My fridge was stocked laundry-folded pantry, labeled. I even showed them the financial folder I kept near the kitchen table. One of the officers smiled. "Honestly, ma'am, you're more organized than I am." I didn't smile back. "Who sent the report?" "We're not allowed to disclose that." But I already knew. Later that day, Barbara came over holding a copy of the Lakeside Gazette. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the paper. There in the letters to the editor section was a piece signed Caleb Avery, a concerned son. When Alzheimer's tears families apart, he wrote about a mother who had become aggressive, who had shown signs of paranoia, who had refused help and kicked out her only support system. It was vague, but not vague enough. He didn't name me, but he didn't need to. Our town wasn't big. People would know. Barbara stood behind me, reading over my shoulder. I felt her hand on my back. "He's trying to break you," she whispered. I nodded, but something had already changed inside me. I wasn't going to cry this time. I wasn't going to plead. I picked up the phone and called a name I hadn't dialed in years. Russell Grant, an attorney I worked with decades ago, when I was still a paralegal. He picked up on the second ring. "Russell," I said, steady and calm. "My son just tried to declare me insane in the local paper. I need your help." And that's when the real fight began. The courtroom felt colder than I expected, sterile, distant, almost like it belonged to someone else's life. Caleb sat on the defendant's bench with a court-appointed attorney who looked half his age and barely interested. Sierra, dressed in black as if she were the widow at a funeral, dabbed her eyes every few minutes, but no tears fell. She glanced at the gallery now and then, as if someone might be watching, recording her act. My lawyer, Russell Grant, stood with quiet confidence. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He submitted the audio of the false 911 report, the officer's follow-up visit, and the transcript of the newspaper letter Caleb had signed. He included statements from Barbara and 3 neighbors who'd all seen me hosting dinner parties, maintaining my garden, and walking daily without any signs of confusion. He showed my medical record. Clean. No diagnosis. No decline. The judge, an older man with sharp eyes and a mouth that rarely moved, took his time. He flipped through the documents, pausing now and then, marking pages with a pen. "You called the police," he finally said to Caleb. "You claimed your mother was delusional, but when officers visited, they found no evidence." "Yes, Your Honor," Caleb mumbled. "You then accused your mother of Alzheimer's in a public letter, without diagnosis, without proof, with intent to manipulate public perception." "Is that correct?" Caleb didn't speak. His attorney tried to interrupt. "Silence," the judge ordered. "You abused emergency services. You submitted false reports. You weaponized stigma." He turned to me. "Mrs. Avery, the court awards you $25,000 in damages plus legal fees." I exhaled for the first time all morning. Then came the real sentence. "Mr. Avery, you are hereby forbidden from approaching or contacting your mother directly or indirectly. Any further harassment will result in criminal charges. This court is adjourned." The gavel struck. Outside, Russell smiled and handed me a folded paper, the official order, and the retraction Caleb was required to publish. It was printed in full 2 days later. Sierra disappeared the following week. No goodbye, no forwarding address. The house was quiet again. But this time, the silence was mine. "Doi jai la fien ban viet lai huan chin chuang nine, voi logic, george kai tien gyun nguyen, kam suk gyong, van hat, quan vei jam bao mak, noi voi chuang truok, noi marlin watang kien, han quan, boi tuong, va buok, rakoi, kwok chien, voi Caleb, va Sierra." The check from the lawsuit cleared on a Thursday. I didn't cash it right away. I left it on the kitchen counter next to a cold cup of coffee and a single plate. For days, I just stared at it, $25,000 in compensation for being humiliated in my own home. But it wasn't about the money. It was about the silence in my house, the kind that didn't come from fear or exhaustion, but from space. Real, breathing space. I cleaned out their old bedroom first. My old room. The one I gave up without hesitation when Caleb said, "Just for a while, Mom. We're trying to save." I stripped the sheets they left behind, dumped the scented candles, boxed up everything they forgot to take, and lit a match to the memories. That same afternoon, a letter arrived. It was from a senior living community in the next town over. They'd read about my case in the local paper. "Your courage stood out," the letter said. "Would you consider becoming our part-time community coordinator?" It wasn't charity. It was a job. A real job. A furnished apartment came with it, sunny small with 2 bedrooms and a balcony overlooking a park. They needed someone to organize social events, lead group activities, help other residents feel at home. Me. They wanted me. I stood in the doorway of my house that night, looking at 30 years of life folded into walls that no longer held anything for me. This place had seen birthdays and scraped knees. It had also seen betrayal, silence, and 3 years of being treated like the help. So, I made a choice. I sold it. Not out of bitterness, but to let it breathe again. A young couple bought it. They had a toddler and another baby on the way. When I handed them the keys, the woman teared up. "This feels like home already," she said. I moved the next week. My new apartment smelled like lemon polish and promise. That first morning, I brewed coffee for one, opened the window, and let the breeze carry everything else away. 6 months passed without a word. The quiet didn't ache the way I thought it would. If anything, it healed me. Then one Tuesday morning, my phone rang. Caleb. I let it go to voicemail. Then I played it. "Mom," he said, voice tired and thinner than I remembered. "Sierra left. She cleaned out the account. Took everything. I know I don't deserve it, but can we talk?" I agreed to meet him at a quiet cafe halfway between his apartment and my new place. He looked older, not just in the eyes, but in the way he carried himself, like someone who had been running on hope and finally hit a wall. We sat across from each other, coffee between us, like 2 people trying to recognize what used to be. "I just want my mom back," he said. His hands trembled slightly as he added sugar to his cup. I let the silence sit. Then I said, "We're not picking up where we left off." He nodded slowly. "We start from scratch," I continued. "This time we don't pretend. I'm not the maid. I'm not the cushion. I'm your mother, and that has to mean something again. But on my terms." He looked up. "I understand. One disrespect," I said, steady and calm, "and it ends. I won't explain it. I won't argue. I'll just walk away." He swallowed hard. "I accept." I didn't smile. I didn't comfort him. I wasn't ready. But I offered him the only thing I had left to give my boundary. That Sunday, he came to visit. He brought his own coffee and asked about my garden. We didn't talk about Sierra. We didn't talk about court. We just sat. 2 people who used to be family now, strangers, trying again, carefully, consciously. That evening, I stayed on the balcony after he left coffee warm in my hand. The light shifted across the trees, gold against the leaves. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for an apology or a crisis or someone to come home hungry and ungrateful. I was simply sitting still, and that was enough.